In this episode, we talk about how to have difficult conversations with your partner. Check it out. Welcome to another episode of Same Page. As you know, we are your hosts, Sarah Semajust.
And I'm Lenard Semajust.
Today, we're coming to you with a topic that we ourselves struggle with, but as the relationship progresses, we kind of learn how to have difficult conversations with one another.
Mm-hmm.
So the topic is really talking about how to approach your partner with a difficult topic.
Mm-hmm. And I think I believe the starting point for this is when you're choosing to have that conversation, for one, you want to ensure that you guys are both calm. You guys are both in a spirit where you guys will both be receptive to whatever the other person has to say. So if you guys are just had a fight, a little quarrel, or a little disagreement, then you want all those emotions that occurred in that circumstance to just calm down, and then revisit that issue that caused the argument or altercation another time, and then you want to make sure that say for example, say Sarah, I did something wrong to Sarah. I would ask her when would it be a good time to talk, since maybe she maybe got more emotional or had more of a reaction to the situation than I did. And then at least when I know she's ready to talk, then we can actually try and hash out that disagreement somehow.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something that's really important. It's like, first of all, letting the person know that you have something very important. And you could say maybe difficult as well. Like, I really need to talk to you about something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that person already knows that it's important just by your tone and the way you're approaching it. I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
when a lady comes and tells a man,
we need
to
to
talk, that typically is like high alert, like, I don't want to do this. Why are you approaching me with this topic that I don't want to discuss? So it's very important for the man, but also the lady, to be in the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes, at least for me to approach a difficult conversation, it is difficult, because Len is not always receptive. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes his initial reaction is to be on just defensive a little bit, like, I don't do this, or like, when did this ever happen, right? So kind of like opening it up to him and saying, hey, I need to talk to you about this, but I recognize that this is not a good time. When would you like us to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
And typically he'll say, like, after my workout, or, tomorrow after this. And then I'll be like, cool. So that we both know at this time we are going to sit down, and we both need to have hopefully an open mind
Mm-hmm.
to discuss the thing, the conversation. What I find also that helps is, because you're prepped, and okay, I'm going to talk to you about this tomorrow at noon. In my mind, I'm already sort of like preparing how I'm going to say certain things that it's not going to hurt him, but it's going to get my point across.
Yes.
Because at least for me, when I'm emotional, I'll say what I feel, but it might come out in a way that is hurtful and more putting blame. Well, you always do this to me, and
Mm-hmm.
you always do that, and I don't like this. As opposed to, this is the thing that bothers me. Not being like, you are the problem. Like, this is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
He might be part of the problem, but just the way I phrase it might put him a little bit less defensive, and he might be more receptive and more willing to come up with a solution with me.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of solutions, so not only do you want to give concrete examples as to what the person did wrong, or what actions that they may have done that didn't sit well with you, but you also want to come up with possible solutions. Like if there was kind of like a break in communication, one way, you can kind of like solve that issue is that, so not only am I going to express myself to Sarah, then she's going to basically repeat what I just told her in her words, just to ensure that she understood what I was saying.
Yeah, kind of like paraphrasing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do need to make sure that the message was conveyed, right?
Yeah.
If you say, yeah, I get it, what you understood might not necessarily mean that's the message that they try to communicate with you.
Exactly.
So I'll actually give an example if you don't mind.
Sure.
Lately, I think I've been frustrated because if I ask Lenard to do something or call his name or whatnot, he won't necessarily respond. And then I'll ask him again and he's like, yeah, I heard you. And then I'll be like, well, if you heard me, then you need to let me know. Like, you need to say yes, or you need to say, okay, Sarah, like, I'm going to do it. So that at least, first of all, you heard. Secondly, whether you agree to do it or not, right? So after I mentioned, it's like, well, you need to say something. Then I ask, like, so the next time I ask you to do something, can you either tell me okay, or I'm going to do it, and when? So at least we have a plan of action, right?
Exactly.
So that he knows when this comes up, then he knows what to do and I know what to expect. But if we left it like, okay, well, you need to respond to me, he may say, okay. And then we don't really know what that means, how he's going to respond. How am I going to know that he really understood what I meant?
Exactly. Yeah. And then we all understand also too that we know that when it comes to most disagreements, there's usually kind of like a breakdown in the communication. So that's something that between you and your partner, you need to, for one, you need to find out like what's the best means to communicate with that person, as far as really getting through to them, and ensuring that you understand what the message that is being conveyed. Like I can't stress that enough because there's so many times, and I'm at fault for that, for thinking that I understand what Sarah is saying, but then when I try to rephrase it to her, she goes, no, I meant this instead, and I meant that instead. So you really have to make sure to really paraphrase in your own words what your partner has told you, just to ensure that you guys are on the same page and you guys understand what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, that has been kind of like a saving grace for us, because we can say that, because I can't count how many times I say something, Leonard says okay, and then the next day the same thing happens and I'm like, you said okay, and he's like, oh, but that's not what I understood, I thought you meant this. And then the issue persists, right? And so now I stress, it may be annoying, but I stress, like, did you get me? And he'll say yes, like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Or what am I going to do? So that it's really understood, like, what is the next step to solving this problem? It's not enough to just talk about it and say, yes, we understood, but how are we actually, what are the actual concrete steps that are we going to take? As another example, just last week, Lenard and I had a difficult conversation. I wanted to talk to him about trust in a relationship. And I knew if I just came up to him and said, like, we need to talk about trust, like, I don't trust you, he would probably be on the fence, because he's like, well, I'm not there doing anything wrong, and what do you mean you don't trust me? I'm always home. So I asked him, like, home. Well, it is COVID.
Yeah, right.
There's nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go.
But I asked him, when do you want to talk? And then he said, I said, do you want to talk now? And he's like, no, I want to talk after, I can't remember after what, but after a certain, maybe he had to go work out or something. And then when we sat down, I gave him some examples of why certain things that he was doing was kind of making me not have the trust in him. And obviously, like, it came to a surprise to him, because it was like, what do you mean? Like, you don't trust me? Like, what is that? But the way I saw it was very different from the way he saw it, right? He was just like, well, these things are super small, right? We were talking about a lamp and like him switching it behind my back, and he was like,
a light bulb.
A light bulb, that's right. And I was just like, yeah, but we agreed together that it was going to be this, but when you went to bed, you did something totally different. Like, why couldn't you just tell me that you didn't agree in my face, as opposed to saying, yes, you agree, and then wait till I go to bed and then do something different, right? And so, first of all, the fact that we set a time to talk about this, he already knew that this was going to be a difficult conversation, so he was ready, right? Did you feel like you were in the right state of mind at that point?
Yes.
Yeah, and just kind of like receptive, and we actually didn't fight about it. It was kind of like, oh, okay, well, next time if I don't agree, I'll just tell you I don't agree, regardless of whether
however you may feel.
Yeah. Yes. In a certain way.
Yeah.
Right?
Obviously, like not trying to hurt her in any way, but at the same time, like if it's between earning her trust and being honest with her, obviously you want to do both, but I'd rather earn your trust.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if I have to say something that might be a little harsh, or maybe something that might be a little painful, then I'd rather say that and earn your trust.
Yeah. At least I know what to expect, and I know where you stand on that matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And it actually went a lot better than I thought, because typically before I have a difficult conversation, like, you know, I wait like a whole week, and I'm like, you know, this is not gonna go down really well, and he's gonna be hurt, and I think of all the different scenarios, and but I know at one point, in order to clear my mind and for a relationship to, you know, continue to be a good relationship,
and evolve.
I have to find the courage to have those difficult conversations with Leonard, and they typically go well. And if they don't, like, you know, at least we can move forward and see how we're going to move forward, as opposed to you keeping a secret or something that's like boiling inside, and you never kind of bring up the topic, and it makes you very, very angry for every single little thing that happens in your relationship.
Yeah. And like, I think at the end of the day too, like, you want to try and bring it back to, okay, there's a reason why you love this person. There's a reason why you guys are together. And if you guys are both engaged into wanting to have an ideal relationship, want to improve your relationship, and actually strive for to attain, I guess, another level within your relationship, then you'll put in the effort and have those difficult conversations. Always try to be respectful. Always try to avoid pointing blame. And like, that's really hard to do, especially when you know, sort of like for a certain disagreement that it wasn't necessarily your fault. You have to try your best to put yourself in that person's shoes and seeing where, like, what perspective that they're coming from, even though you may have felt attacked, or you may have felt that you didn't do anything wrong. Still try and keep an open mind and have that discussion and really put yourself in that person's shoes. Because I know, like, for myself, it's really hard to understand where Sarah's coming from at times, because we are completely different people in so many ways on certain issues, right? So I really try and take a step back and be like, okay, well, even though on this particular topic I don't necessarily relate to what she's trying to say, or the message she's trying to convey, but at the same time, knowing that that particular instance upset her, I have to take a step back, reflect, and see if I can at least attempt to understand where she's coming from.
Yeah, no, it's very true. So I think, like, your relationship, I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but I think it's as good as, if you can have hard conversations with your partner, your relationship is going to be that much better, because you are going to be able to, you're going to feel like you're able to not only trust the person with these, you know, hearts to hearts and your true feelings, and really tell them how you feel. And I feel like if you can get past those difficult conversations and talk about real issues, your relationship will be very strong.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let us know how you have difficult conversations with your partner, or do you avoid them, you know? And if you do avoid them, how does that play out? And if you don't, like, how do you bring them up to the table?
Yeah.
And how does that typically go? Does it typically get worse and, you know, lead to, you know, a bigger fight, or get better after?
Exactly. So some of these things are hard to talk about, but it has to be done for
Greater good
greater good of your relationship.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching this episode. As usual, don't forget to comment, like, follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and until next time, don't forget to live your truth.